Phase Zero Season 3 Episode 32 starts right now in your ear holes and your eyeballs. I'm Brandon Davis, joined today by Jenna Anderson.
Hey, everybody. This should be a really, really fun one. I feel like we need Evanescence playing in the background, but in lieu of that, let's just get ready because it's going to be fun.
How can you see? I'm going to stop, not because it's bad, but because I don't want to get taken down because of how much I sound. And we know you can't get that copyright. Aaron Perrine.
What's going on, everybody? I hope you enjoyed your preview of Avengers Secret Wars over the weekend. I will not be delving into that further.
Wake me up. Wake me up. That's right, guys. We are in an Evanescence kind of mood because in the last third of today's show, as promised, we're doing the Daredevil, 2003's Daredevil 20 years later review. Yeah, that is absolutely a movie, and we're going to talk about it. First, though, we got to introduce our special guest on today's show. You may have noticed Jamie Durack not with us today. She's taking a day to herself. She needs a little time to recover just from life. Life gets to you sometimes. And we have a special guest, so it's still going to be a pretty Fantastic Four on Phase Zero today. Oh, that's our first news subject. A little foreshadowing. Well done, writer. That's me. Okay, if you go on social media, you might know Fantastic Frankey. She's a content creator, but also she started her own website. And if you go on that website, Fanboy Fighter, you'll see that there's an About Me tab where she describes herself as a nerd commentator who provides webisodes to spark debates around comics, anime, sci-fi, fantasy, and pop culture. Her goal is to normalize the Black female voice in this heavily underrepresented space, one fanboy at a time. I think it's so admirable to be doing stuff like that, to have your own website. That's not easy work. She's always active on social media. She's always part of every conversation. She's a great voice in it. And now she's on Phase Zero. Fantastic Frankie. Welcome to the show, Frankie. How you doing?
I'm great. That was a really cool intro. I feel like it's my birthday. Thank you.
Oh, my God. Well, we are thrilled to have you on Phase Zero, Frank. I see Frankie at so many events. I think we met, it was Thor?
No, we met at Multiverse of Madness.
That's okay. So a couple months before that. That's right. It was Multiverse of Madness. Yeah. And I mean, you just have such a great energy. You have so much fun. You're so much fun to hang around. And I just think everybody who has ever interacted with you has that opinion. So keep up the great work you're doing. First of all, how did you get into this? Where does Frankie's story begin?
Yeah. I'm a very, very OG nerd. My dad was actually really into comic books when I was younger. So I've been going to Comic Cons. Like there's pictures of me strapped to his chest at they were cons when I was younger. I was born in the 90s. But I've been in it for a very long time. And for a long time, I felt like I couldn't express myself, especially in my community. I grew up in New York City. And then one day I had kind of like I call it the Issa Rae moment where I'm changing personally, and I want to see this thing online. I want to see more women like me discuss these topics, and I've been waiting for it to happen. I realized I should be the person. So I started off on my iPhone, and then COVID happened, and it really gave me space to explore it creatively. And I've been super blessed to be able to really have some fun, really talk about the things that I notice. As someone who's Black, I'm also Latina, I'm Puerto Rican, and just being able to share my experience with other people.
Oh, that's awesome. So listen, everybody, if you want to find Frankie online, it's at Fantastic Frankie on socials. Thousands and thousands of followers on these platforms, on YouTube, on TikTok, on Instagram. Fanboy Fighter, the site. I want to hear about launching Fanboy Fighter. That's not easy to do. That's a lot of work. At Comic Book, we got 1,000 people here behind the scenes running the website. Is that all you?
Yes, actually. So that's why it's very simple. But yeah, I mean, ideally, I'll have it at a place where I can really start to highlight indie comics as well on that platform. But yeah, going on GoDaddy, sometimes recruiting people in my life to help me out. But yeah, every platform I run by myself because I'm a crazy person. So yeah, I kind of really map out everything that I want to do. I also work with Max, the streaming service. I'm their official spokesperson on Hero Mode. So that fiscally gives me the space to really work on my own brand and highlight other creators, highlight comic books, and really create topics and debates on these pages.
That's awesome. I always find people's stories so interesting in our space, in our industry, because everybody has such a different kind of origin story, how we became our own heroes to do this stuff. And it's really fun to go to these premieres and meet everybody, go to these conventions and meet people and network and hear stories like that. So I want to ask you, whether it's somebody in our industry or just a celebrity who's made an impact on you, you were just jazzed to meet. You're at every event. I see you all over the place. So who do you have one that stands out? Like, this was awesome. This is somebody I learned from. I was hyped to meet, that really just stands out in your memory.
Yeah, I have two. Okay, one was Sam Richardson.
Yes.
He was just the nicest. And like we were talking randomly about like random stuff, and I was like, I forgot you were Sam Richardson for a second. Like he was just very personable, and he gave me a lot of words of encouragement. I don't even know if he remembers me, but it was just very impactful. And at San Diego Comic-Con, I met Jim Lee. And
that was this year, right?
Yes, at IGN, but not IGN, at the fandom party, but I was drunk and I mixed him up. Like my friends was like, that's Jim Lee over there. And his like, I think his manager or something was standing right next to him.
Mhm.
And this is a very tall white guy. And I don't know why I thought she was pointing at him. And so I go and I'm like, are you Jim Lee? Because I'm thinking like, I thought Jim Lee was Asian. And like, it wasn't. He was like, standing next to him. So I was very embarrassed, but at least I left, I guess, an impression. He was very nice about it. He knew we were all very drunk at that. I don't know what they put in those drinks, but everybody was like definitely feeling each other. So I was like, of course, I've been like a huge DC fan for all my life, and this is how I meet Jim Lee.
That's awesome.
Right?
Jim Lee's awesome. Jim Lee is really cool to talk to. Actually, I don't think I've ever told this story before. Sorry in advance to Richard, who's behind the scenes right now. But because of your story, I have to match it with a story I've never told online. Richard and I went to the premiere of Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, and he's listening. He knows exactly where this is going right now. And when we were walking in, there's this guy walking in behind us, and I didn't really get a good look at him. I got a good enough look that I should have been able to correct this. But Richard goes, I'm pretty sure this is how it went. Richard, feel free to tell me if I'm wrong. But Richard, I don't know if it was John Williams or if it was Frank Oz, but whichever one it was, we both said it was the other one. And I posted an Instagram story, and I was like, oh my God, I don't remember. But then somebody messaged me and was like, bro, that's John Williams, or that, I don't remember. It was the other one. I was mortified because not only did I get it wrong in the moment, but I got it wrong publicly on social media and deleted it real quick. But it happens. All that to say it happens. And we weren't even drunk. So we don't have that excuse. We don't have that excuse. But Frankie, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us and introducing yourself to the Phasor audience. Everybody who's listening, please go find and support Frankie. Really awesome content all the time, especially if you're into anime. But sci-fi comics, all sorts of stuff, all sorts of pop culture topics. I always see you in my feed, always talking about what's going on in our spaces. So thank you for joining us. We're going to get to some MCU news now. We got to start with MCU news that I know everybody's tired of, but it went crazy this week, and we got to talk about it because it's partially true. Fantastic Four casting is getting out there, and if you ask some people right now, it's Vanessa Kirby and it's Joseph Quinn as Sue Storm and Johnny Storm. First of all, only one of these is actually right now. And one of them, I'm pretty sure, it might end up being true, but it's not yet. But we're going to go around and get reactions to this casting first. Aaron, you're at the top of the screen. What do you think of this?
So this broke as I was getting out of the office on, was it on Friday? I want to say it was on Friday. It was after our show, whenever it was. And just the absolute hilarity of our Slack channel being like, we have to get this, we have to cover it, like trying to figure out how to package it. And within the time, God bless Kofi writing it, it had changed. And I'm like, this is a microcosm of the entire Fantastic Four casting saga.
So I was on a plane. I wasn't watching this, but I wasn't watching the stream, but I downloaded the Wi-Fi. Thanks, United Airlines Mileage Plus, only $8, bless. But the cat. So my understanding of what happened, it was Jeff Schneider, right? On the hot mic.
Yes.
Yes.
I think so.
Jeff Schneider got a great track record. This dude knows his stuff. He goes out there and he says it's Vanessa Kirby and Jack Quaid, right? Is that? and he
Yes.
just misspoke. He said the wrong name just by accident.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens,
Yeah.
but that stinks. But so he says it, and then everybody starts writing that Jack Quaid is Johnny Storm because we all trust him. And it gets so far that even Jack Quaid has to go on Twitter and say, hey, guys, not playing Johnny Storm, but support SAG-AFTRA, which props to Jack Quaid for that. But that's crazy that this became such a roller coaster. So then what happened? Like a few minutes later, he corrected himself?
Yeah, he caught himself. Yeah.
Oh, my
Wrong
gosh.
Jack.
Wow. Okay. So yeah. So that's, if you guys aren't on Twitter, I know we have a lot of listeners in podcast form who don't interact with us on Twitter. So that's how that went for us, as far as I knew it. And I'm on a plane just feeling so claustrophobic, like, I need this thing to land. This is big news. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that story's insane. The Fantastic Four casting roller coaster is just that. Jenna, what do you think of potentially Vanessa Kirby and maybe Joseph Quinn?
I will carry the torch of Jamie because I know she and I are the biggest Vanessa Kirby stands on the show. I love the idea of her as Sue much. I think this is perfect. I know we talked about the Margot Robbie possibility, but I think Vanessa Kirby can really make the character her own and can really have a lot of fun with it. I am not as familiar with Joseph Quinn. I haven't watched the last couple seasons of Stranger Things, so I am not as familiar with his work, but I could see it. But I also feel like, as we've said, like some of this is going to change. Even as this whole bonanza was happening and I was like looking at Slack, looking at Twitter, because I wasn't technically on for the day, I was still like, none of this is going to actually stick. Like things are going to change a half a dozen other times before we even get to the official casting. Because also you're telling me, even in the best case scenario, even without all of the strikes, Kevin Feige would not want this announcement to come out through Jeff Snyder's podcast. So I feel like we're still going to have some sort of changes by the time we get all four of them revealed. It's just the roller coaster never ends.
It really doesn't. Frankie, are you tired of the Fantastic Four casting rumors yet?
You know, I am, but not really. I think it's very important, who they choose. I actually just rewatched the movies from the early 2000s, and I just feel like the Fantastic Four story is never really told well. And I'm just very excited. I think that, is it Joseph Quinn? Not Jack Quaid, right? I think Joseph Quinn I think he's great. He's a little edgy, but he has a sweet side to him. But I was really concerned about Sue and who they're choosing, especially since they're actually going to give her just due and make her the focal point. And I want to see who they're going to choose for Reed.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I feel like people don't know the Fantastic Four story as a whole. And after seeing like Guardians of the Galaxy and seeing how like colorful and beautiful that was, I'm hoping that they keep it very galactic, very spacey, very colorful. So I'm very excited. I love Fantastic Four. It's kind of the reason why I have my name. So that and alliteration. So I can't wait, honestly.
I was going to ask if Fantastic Frankie was in any way rooted to Fantastic Four.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I love Sue's story. I actually did a video about how, like, initially they weren't giving her just due. And in the media as a whole, they don't. In the original movie, they like have her like use her powers to get rid of a zit, like things like that. And I'm just very excited to see her like played well and written well.
Yeah, I'm as far as I keep hearing from enough places for me to say it confidently on the show, Vanessa Kirby is the only person who is actually locked into Fantastic Four, and they're building around her. And they've had a bunch of people audition, and Joseph Quinn could end up being Johnny Storm, but he's not yet. That's what I know. And also the Adam Driver thing I heard was never even was going to happen. So
thank God. I was
really I like it. I like him. I like that guy.
I kind of like him. I just don't get it. Maybe it's the girls role that's tainted him for me. But I couldn't see him as Reed Richards. I thought he was great as Kylo Ren, but like I don't think he's smooth. I don't think he's like. There's a lot of things about
he's smooth
Reed,
either.
You know what I mean? Like I just pictured Reed Richards screaming at the top of his lungs.
I just see him and Sue getting in a fight and him being like, I wake up every morning wishing you were dead.
Well, so Frankie, who would you pick for Reed? If you got to cast Reed, who would it be?
I don't know. Maybe this is a hot take. Maybe Timothy Chalamet. He could gain some weight.
Oh
I like him. I like Timothy Chalamet. I'm so sorry, Brandon. It's
Old
not gonna be like him.
Timothy.
I like
That
him. I
man.
think he's the moment. He can gain a little weight. I know you guys are upset. Maybe Harry too, Harry Styles. I wanted to be someone like Reed is also very charming and suave. And I think that's a piece that we forget. And that's what I want. I want someone who's like nerdy, but I also want someone who's like, we're like, what's happening? Why do I feel this way? Like, why am I so attracted to this man? So I don't know. I trust them. The MCU hasn't really, in terms of casting, they've done a pretty good job, even when I don't believe them. So we'll see. We'll see. But yeah, if they pick Timothy Chalamet, you guys heard it here first, and I don't want to hear any complaints.
I think Timothy Chalamet comes across almost as the same age as Tom Holland. I mean, they are the same age, I'm pretty sure. But for me, Reed, those gray stripes in the hair, I'm not going to believe it on Mr. Chalamet.
Are they doing it? Are they younger? What's the age here?
I don't know. Well, Vanessa Kirby is. I don't know. Vanessa Kirby and Timothy Chalamet next to each other.
I think it's because he's so thin that he looks that age.
I think we're gonna get like a Matt Smith.
Yeah.
Matt Smith?
That's what I think. Watch.
No,
Daemon Targaryen coming in.
I don't know. I don't think he would be any better than Adam Driver. I don't know. Well, no.
We'll see. But this is what happens on every Fantastic Four conversation. It's just like everybody has thoughts. None of them matter because we ain't Sarafin. We ain't Kevin Feige. Mm-hmm. We ain't in the room, but we're out here, hopefully. I bet Timothy Chalamet, we know he watches Phase Zero every single week. He just sat there and he was like, yes. All right, so Fantastic Four rumors are going crazy. I'll tell you right now, Vanessa Kirby, I'm confident enough to say she is Sue Storm. The rest of them, I don't believe are finished yet. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's move on to the next bit of news here.
Yeah, so we got a trailer for season 2 of I Am Groot, which I think there were rumblings about season 2, but we weren't really sure if it was definitely going to be a thing, but now we know that it is. So the new shorts will premiere on September 6th, and the trailer has a cameo from The Watcher, which was kind of unexpected. But yeah, how do we feel about more I Am Groot? I know when we talked about season 1, we were all raving about the show, but I love it. I still think it's adorable, but how do we feel?
I'm just happy they put it all as one thumbnail.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On Disney Plus. Oh, yeah. I don't have much else to say. I'm not going to lie.
I think it's funny because there was like a lot of the fandom when this happened. Like, I guess they have notifications set up for Marvel Studios. And to see it be I Am Groot was like, a lot of people are annoyed. But I'll tell you, if they okay to season 2 and put it in production and everything else, some kids must have been watching this. Some kids must have been locked into some I Am Groot. It must be like that Olaf show that they put out those shorts, which I know my nephews watched a ton of that. So apparently it's working. That's good. I don't know if it's going to be any more connected. Probably not. Hopefully we get at least one more cute thing. I know Jamie is so sad she's not here to talk about more.
I'll never forget the first time we talked about I Am Groot on this show, and Jamie was like, guys, I'm going to be honest, I didn't watch it because I forgot it came out today.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that kind of sums up, like, I think the mass amount of content we're getting and the shorts that are disconnected already. This is just for kids. I mean, it's fun. They're fun. They're harmless. Frankie, you have anything you want to say about I Am Groot season 2?
Yeah, it's cute. I like things that add to the universe, and I think things like I Am Groot is the reason why Guardians of the Galaxy 3 was so good. Like, there are so many things to help us like endear and love these characters. And like in DC, there's so many animated versions that we watch and like use that. And for Marvel, I feel like they're really starting to like come into their own and like have these different like things to help without the weight of the shows like Secret Invasion and stuff like that. So I think it's cute. Someone just said Moon Girl. I like those children's shows to like just kind of have some fun without any pressure.
It's the internet here, bro.
Oh
no.
Oh, we had a little internet issue there, and we're back.
Okay.
All right. So I Am Groot season 2. Everybody agrees it's kind of cute and harmless. I find it funny that James Gunn says this is not canon, and everyone else from Marvel Studios is like, this is set between Guardians 1 and 2. And then James Gunn's like, no, it's not. Who do you believe? Who do you trust?
They did that with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I thought is one of my favorite Marvel series of all the series they have. I think it's the most consistent, and it had like direct correlations to the movies. And then they were like, this is not canon. But like, to me, it's definitely canon.
All right, we got to keep moving here. We're actually going longer than I thought we would. Okay. Aaron, you got the next one.
I do. So Harrison Ford is excited to be in the MCU, according to Anthony Mackie. In an interview with the Wrap stage before the SAG-AFTRA strike, he talked about how weird it is to have a legend walking among them and how they all get used to it. Harrison was the effing dude. It's funny. He shows up and everybody's kind of, you don't know what to do with Harrison Ford. Like, somebody get Harrison water. But he wasn't like that at all. I was surprised how lighthearted and easy he was, how excited he was to be a part of it. For him to be in this profession for so many years and see him at 80, excited to be a part of this universe, was really dope and put things in perspective about how lucky we are, how lucky I am to be a part of it and bringing these characters to life. So we had a good time. And he talks about one of the PAs, like some person who was like an extra who was supposed to say, give me the reports to Harrison Ford, and could not say it. They just walk in and just stare because it's Harrison Ford sitting there. And I can relate. I understand. So for a man who's not excited about everything and apparently doesn't know who a Red Hulk is it fun to hear that he's excited to be in the MCU?
I was about to say, like, I've said it once, I'll say it a million times. It is still baffling to me that this man agreed to be in the MCU. Like, I love being in the timeline where that is the case, and knowing that he's actually having fun with the experience, and it's not the, sequel trilogy Star Wars kind of thing where it's like, I don't really want to be here. Like, I love knowing that he's excited about it, and that then makes me more excited.
I'll tell you right now, that man knows what a Red Hulk is.
Yeah.
I promise, I guarantee. I can tell you right now, he knows what a Red Hulk is. And if he doesn't, then he left. He left that day. Yeah. Harrison Ford's just got an aura about him that's just still like that, like big celebrity. I don't know how to describe it. It's not often I get nervous around celebrities, but I was at the junket for I don't remember what it was, but it was the same day on the same hotel floor as Indiana Jones. And I saw that man go by the end of the hallway, and I was like, that's Harrison Ford. That's Harrison Ford. Frankie, you hyped for...
Yeah, I mean, this is the only franchise he hasn't touched yet. So
that's true.
I'm ready. I think he's incredible. I think people always call Tom Cruise the last movie star. I always thought it was Harrison Ford. Like, I love him. I grew up on him. I think he'll be great.
Harrison Ford's got that. That Harrison Ford energy is unmatched, man. I've watching Jamie's interview with him. Woo, that was good. That was good. If that was me, I'd have just been shaking. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie to you. All right, real quick, last piece of news before we take a quick break. McDonald's is getting a Loki tie-in sauce. It's a sweet and sour sauce themed around Loki season 2, and I feel like that's all we have to say about that. McDonald's, y'all want to sponsor Phase Zero? Send us some sweet and sour. Do some gift baskets for all of our listeners. We'll do it. And that's all we got to say about that.
The one thing I am curious about with regards to this is, like, does this kind of hint that because the sauce comes out next week, right? Like August 14th, I think is the date that they said. Yeah, does this hint that season 2 was supposed to come out earlier than October? Because knowing how the Grimace shake was and how you could barely get it for more than a month, I would be shocked if this is still around by October. So I don't know. I just find that particularly interesting of was the show supposed to come out a little bit earlier than we're getting it? Either way, it's cool, but this is the weirdest tie-in ever. But I
definitely think it was supposed to come earlier. I'm pretty sure it was supposed to come before Secret Invasion, but here we are in the timeline where it didn't. Loki sweet and sour sauce. And that's go get your sweet and sour sauce. We're going to take a 1-minute break. When we come back, we're going to talk about which characters, MCU, comics, whatever, that should get the next movie announcement. See you in a minute. Welcome back to Phase Zero. In just about 10, maybe 15 minutes, we'll be talking about Daredevil, the 2003 edition. But first, we're going to talk about movies, the 2025, 2026, 2027 editions. I wanted to have a little conversation about movie characters we think should get announcements for solo films that aren't already announced. This could be a sequel to a movie that we haven't gotten a sequel to. This could be a character introduced on Disney Plus. That could be. Oh, did I cut out again?
Nope.
Oh. It looked like everybody froze for a second. This could be a character from Disney Plus who gets a movie. This could be a comic book character who gets a movie, or a supporting character you think should get a little standalone time. And I think we could go around here. Maybe I feel like we're all going to have pretty different characters here. Aaron, you're at the top of the screen, buddy.
Well, Jamie's not here, and as a part of the Aaron Jamie Treaty of 2020.
I know where this is going.
We absolutely have to get Mother back because I really would like to see Wanda in something by herself. I feel like of all of the weirdo, crazy opinions about Phase 4, no one can deny the cultural impact of a WandaVision. And I feel like, oh my goodness, if they announced the solo project, I would love to see what the box office of any of that would be. I would love to see it. Also, I just, it just feels weird. It's one of those disconnected threads from the stuff because we don't know what happened. I know she's not dead, but also what happened. So there's an level of intrigue there. I know what my co-hosts are going to pick. So this was pretty easy for me. I really would like to see her have to go back and get the boys because I don't want to wait for Secret Wars for them to reunite. It would be good. So yeah, I'm all the way on the Scarlet Witch train. I'm like, give me Witch's Road or whatever it is you're gonna do. Do your worst, Kevin Feige.
Jenna, what are you thinking?
I also echo the Wanda of it all. But of course, I'm gonna say my girl, and I'm gonna just say She-Hulk and the Hulk family. I feel like the fact that we haven't had a Hulk solo, it's the kind of thing that if we were to have one in development now, I feel like the audience would be excited by it. And I think there's so much more lore that we can kind of bring in and deal with. We still have Scar and his haircut to deal with. We have so many elements. So I feel like there would be a way to do a Hulk movie that is so fundamentally different from every other Hulk movie that we've had before. And that just kind of is in the MCU in a very fun way. So that would be my answer by far.
I feel like the Incredible Hulk gets dookied on all the time, but it honestly, Edward Norton's version of the Hulk, I think, is fantastic. That Hulk was actually scary. And that Hulk, in my opinion, is far better than Professor Hulk. And I don't think Hulks are getting their due right now. That was actually going to be my pick. I'm glad you did it because now I get to go with what my heart is saying, but I'll save mine for last. But I agree. I would love to see an actual Hulk movie. I feel like when people say, oh, the MCU is dead, after Endgame it ended, they forget the fact that Deadpool 3 is coming. We got Cap 4. We got a lot of things that are actually really exciting, no matter how you try to diss the MCU or share your frustrations about it or act like you don't care. Maybe some people, obviously, they actually don't care. But when you think about that, and then they have the X-Men they haven't even started with, there is so much they have. And if they announced a Hulk movie, I feel like that just puts butts in seats. Hulk is one of the best known characters, but it's interesting because they've kind of put themselves in a weird place with specifically the Hulk. The She-Hulk's great. Scar, I don't care yet. We'll see that. But I want a raging Hulk. I'm done with Professor Hulk. I've been saying it forever. But yeah, I think Hulk is a great choice. Frankie, what do you think? Who's your character?
I'm a big X-Men girl.
Okay.
I'm torn. I'm torn between Storm and Jean Grey. I feel like, especially Jean Grey, I feel like there's so much to her story that people kind of like breeze through. Everybody wants to do the Phoenix saga. No one ever takes the time to like flush her out. And then even the source material for the Phoenix saga, doesn't hold up, doesn't translate to the current times. So I would love to see one where she has more autonomy, where she's really pushing. Or Storm. I love Storm. She has so many other stories, and she touches so many other stories where she's like part of other teams. She goes to Wakanda, so that could be a tie-in. I would love, or even her being like from Harlem, I think is pretty cool too. And like having like a New York type story around her would be awesome.
I like those picks. I can't wait to see Storm come into the MCU. Oh my gosh, that's gonna be. I can't wait to see all the X-Men come into the MCU under Kevin Feige's control, and I just feel like it's gonna be another minute. I'm like, are we actually gonna get the X-Men before Secret Wars in the non-Fox way?
No,
I don't know. Like, where is that gonna fit? It doesn't.
How are we gonna explain them being quiet?
That's what I'm saying. It already didn't work once. That approach already didn't. We saw one way not to do it already, in my opinion. Eternals.
Especially Charles. He's so nosy. I couldn't imagine, like, he's so nosy. I couldn't imagine him. Maybe they'll use Krakoa. That'll be cool, but I'm very, very interested. Maybe it'll be a multiverse thing where they're brought in. I'm just so very interested because I couldn't see them for the last 25 years. Thanos is ripping and running, all that, just being quiet and not helping, especially with the scroll, with the secret invasion. It just doesn't make sense.
I actually don't have anything like to disagree with that, but I would like to push back on the people in the comments who are like, "Yo, it's so hard to do a Storm without T'Challa." No, it's not. It's really not. She's super interesting on her own.
Yeah,
I love. Trust me, I miss Chadwick too. I love the Panther. I love Wakanda. Like, it would be tremendous. I kind of thought maybe she would be like what the post-credit thing for Wakanda Forever was before everything kind of like went up in the air. But yeah, I think there's more than enough Storm X-Men stuff on her own to do without that. You don't need the Panther with her, for real.
And hot take, their relationship was not that great. I'm not gonna hold you guys. It was a little, and she said it herself. Like, they're, like you said, Aaron, they're so independent, particularly Storm, and T'Challa is an actual king, and he's not ripping and running. I actually personally like her relationship with Shuri a lot more. And the way that she supports her to become the Black Panther and things like that. I think that's bigger. But Storm as like the leader of the X-Men, even her little relationship with Logan, I kind of liked a little bit more. There's just so much to Storm that I think could be done.
Yeah. Going back to the conversation about how they're going to have the X-Men in the MCU, I actually got to give them credit. I've been impatient with a lot of things, but I think the slow seeding of mutants through Miss Marvel and Namor in the live action in the MCU, I think that might just be how they do it. They might just start saying, well, here's people who are discovering that they are mutants. This mutant gene was created. Namor was out there the whole time and we didn't know. So maybe there are characters that just have a mutant gene and they're just going to start popping up, and eventually they're going to take sides. Mm-hmm. Professor X will lead some of them, Magneto will lead the others, and about how they should have their kind of coming out party as mutants, and whether or not they should. But that would, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how they maneuver that going forward. But it's tricky. I just hope they don't do the whole, well, they were here all along. They just didn't feel like helping, because then I don't like that story. I don't like the revisionist history of the MCU that Secret Invasion has done, that Eternals has done. Some of it has been okay. Some of it's just too big and not working for me. All right. And mine, I mean, come on. Surprising absolutely no one. Nova. What do you mean? Obviously, Richard Rider or Sam Alexander, honestly. I think that the cultural elements you could bring in through a Sam Alexander are really, really good. And I've said this before, I think there's a way to combine the stories of Sam and Rich, have Rich be the long lost father of Sam, just out there in space, instead of Sam having a different father that he finds. But I think Sam Alexander's story fits the current tone of the MCU more. It's more kid friendly. It's more like Spider-Man Homecoming, but cosmic if you make it into a movie. But I think Richard Rider is an opportunity to get back to like almost a Tony Stark type of character. He's so cocky. He's overzealous. He's a bit of a player. Like, he's just fun to watch in that way. He's got to learn to like control himself, learn what's right, what's wrong, learn balance. learn to steal Star-Lord's girlfriend. And I think that Nova is just an awesome character. And I would really, really love to see Nova get his due in the MCU. And that surprised absolutely nobody who's ever listened to this show once. So, yeah. God, bring him in. Bring him in.
One day you'll get your wish.
Yeah, one day I'm gonna. If I were, wait, we had a comment. Oh, I can't see it. I don't know. But if I were like a professional wrestler, my ring gear would be Nova inspired.
Nice.
100%, no doubt. I'll be like Johnny Gargano out there, and everybody be like, "What the hell is he wearing?" Because nobody even knows who Nova is if they're not a hardcore fan. But I do, and I'm rooting for him. All right, we're gonna take a quick 1-minute break. When we come back, we're talking about 2003's Daredevil. If you have not ever seen this movie, what? I don't believe you. But go ahead, pause the show, come back after you watch it. It's a whole movie, and we're gonna talk about it in a minute. See you there. Welcome back to Phase Zero. We're going back in time about 20 years right now. We're going to talk about the Daredevil movie. Before there was Spider-Man No Way Home, before there was She-Hulk's boyfriend, before there was multiple seasons of a Defender on Netflix, there was a man in a motorcycle suit who would later be Batman. But first, he was Daredevil. This movie came out in 2003, and I'm not going to lie. As a kid, I loved this movie. I loved the Daredevil movie when I was 11 years old. Now, well, I'm going to make you wait for it. Jenna, what do you think of this movie having watched it now 20 years later?
So I will preface this by saying this is one of my favorite like matinee, like cable TV movies where if it is on at any point in time, I will put it on and I will watch it all the way through. So much so that a couple of years ago for Christmas, we got a bunch of Daredevil trading cards as a present, and the pièce de résistance was a signed Coolio card, so which I am showing to the camera right now.
Wow.
So I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I hadn't watched the director's cut in the longest time, so getting to rewatch it for this was really fun. I think for the time, it does some really interesting things, and it is really creative and just fun. It obviously has aged very weirdly in other respects, but I think the effort that they put into it is just very fun to watch. So I will always champion this movie.
Aaron, what are you thinking?
So fun times, because I literally, me and my fiance were joking around like, I don't remember nothing that happened in this movie before watching it yesterday. I don't remember anything. I remember the soundtrack stuff more than I remember the actual content of the movie. I will say it has a very, very distinct visual style. I loved the intro credits. Like for some reason last night, it was like, oh my, this is super dope. You can also tell this is from that like probably 3 to 4 year period where they were really trying to make these things look as much like the comic on the page as they possibly could. Like the way that it was blocked when it's doing all like the moving around in the frame, and then up to Matt hanging on that cross, which is literally just Frank Miller stuff. I'm like, man, we get certain like panels rendered on screen, but we're not doing it like this anymore, where it's like, no, I want you to literally make this image. Talk to HR. These are the same picture. Like that's what it felt like for a lot of it. But I did enjoy myself. It is very different than some of the stuff we have now, but it was fun. It was interesting.
It's Ben Affleck, man. That dude just recreates images out of the books. as Daredevil and as Batman. He created that Dark Knight Returns book in as Batman, and then that cover in Daredevil. Frankie, what do you think of 2003's Daredevil?
It is one of the most. I think it's a time capsule.
Yeah.
Like I feel like watching Marvel movies now, they're a little bit more timeless versus like down to Evanescence being on the soundtrack. If you guys watched SmackDown in 2003, I mean, they were the hottest thing out. Colin, the fashion, everything about it was just like watching a moment in time, and I really appreciate it. I didn't realize that Kevin Feige and Jon Favreau were so involved with this movie, and you can tell it is very much a like this movie is for nerds who enjoy the comic books. I liked it. I like the suit. I like the motorcycle suit and just like that kind of like look. I hated the way Ben Affleck played blind. Like it was a little odd. It was a little odd. It was a little odd, but I thought the action scenes were decent, particularly with Kingpin, and like Daredevil was killing people. This too. I don't remember that, but he was ruthless, and like I really enjoyed that. I thought it was cool. I thought it was really cool.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm with you guys. I thought this movie's pretty damn fun.
Yeah.
Like it's absurd. It is so damn cheesy. Some of the dialogue is just unforgivable. Like when young Matt Murdock wakes up in the hospital and he's just like, Dad, something happened to me. I can feel it. Things are different now. It's like, okay, well, listen, whatever. It's 2003. This is kind of how things might have been written back then. And 2003, I love this movie. It is very different from the current MCU, like you just said. I totally agree. It does feel like a time capsule. It feels like the intro to SmackDown. Like it just feels like you're watching that era come to life. There are, and you also you say it's an homage to the people who love comics. There's so many comic creator references in this movie. If you look at the matinee board for the fight, Jack Murdock, it's Jack Murdock versus John Romita. The guy who he kills on or I don't know if he or allows to die, certainly doesn't save on the train, was Jose Quesada, and then the body at the morgue that they went and looked at was Kirby. So there was clearly a love of comics, and the director of this movie, Mark Steven Johnson, was attached to a Daredevil script before this movie. And then Chris Columbus was going to come in and direct this. And if you don't know Chris Columbus, he did Harry Potter, the first Harry Potter movie. He did Home Alone. He did Mrs. Doubtfire. So Chris Columbus, this would have been a very different movie if Chris Columbus directed it, I imagine. But Mark Steven Johnson directed it. And I think like for the time, I just give him credit. He took swings, man. This was a comic book movie. And I feel like we don't stylized comic book movies like this anymore. Colin Farrell swiping through the streets on a motorcycle, rubbing his head and licking his lips and throwing ninja stars. Come on, like it's fun, it's silly, and I gotta say I enjoyed this movie. There's parts of it that I thought were just stupid, but there's also parts of it that I was like, man, this is entertaining as hell. I'm not gonna lie. One thing I want to say: if this movie came out now, we would all forever. Could you imagine New Rockstar's video about the alligators in the sewers? What that would mean. The lizard confirmed. Well, all the theories that would come from the alligators in the sewers. And I don't know if I've ever seen the Elektra movie. I swear I have, but I can't remember a dang thing from that movie. Was that supposed to be a thing? Do we know?
I also can't remember anything from the Elektra movie either, so I'm in the same boat as you. I have no idea.
Next week gonna be fun.
Yeah.
If I didn't remember this, you know.
You guys, I thought you guys knew. Like, how did she come back?
I don't remember. I don't
Power
remember
fresh
the little braille necklace at the end. And I remember as a kid being like, oh, she's still out there. And I'm not gonna lie, this movie, I was 11 years old. I'm pretty sure Jennifer Garner as Elektra was the first time I had a crush on a woman. Oh my goodness, she's perfect in this movie. I love her so much. But when she came back, I was like, oh my gosh, she's back. But then they had the Elektra movie. This was almost like that was the first time. Maybe not the first time. Maybe I shouldn't say that. I'm sure there's something I'm forgetting. I don't know. Maybe it is the first time. But this was building out its own universe because it had a spinoff movie. So they had Daredevil. They had Elektra. They could have kept going maybe. And who knows? There was always. I tried to set up an interview with Mark Steven Johnson. I'm still hoping we can do it because he also wrote the Elektra movie. So after I rewatched that, I'm really hoping to talk to him. But I really would love to know where this is going because there was at one point, I remember a story about this and I got to brush up on it. A plan to have the Fantastic Four and Daredevil and the X-Men and stuff in a sort of Avengers-like event movie way back before the MCU existed. That would have been crazy. Could you imagine this tone of film? doing an ensemble crossover flick, that would have been with like Hugh Jackman and Chris Evans and Halle Berry and Ben Affleck and Michael Clark Duncan, who was an excellent Kingpin, by the way. Excellent. My God, that man was gigantic.
He's so big. I have so many notes about him, but the biggest one is he's so smug. And I really liked him like that. Like he killed a man and then showed up at his funeral. Like he was like, "Oh man, sorry for your loss," and I was like, "This is very wild." But yeah, like I really liked him. He was both charming and smug and terrible. And one thing I really liked that we're not getting anymore is that he and Bullseye were just villains. They're just terrible people, and I really like that. Like they show Bullseye like kills this old woman because she's talking too much. She has headphones on. He has headphones. I was like, turn those up. Like, what's your problem?
Every time I'm on an airplane and somebody won't stop talking to me, I think of that scene. Now, I'm not saying I want to throw a peanut down somebody's throat like Colin Farrell does, but I always think of that scene. And I'm like, man, that is some crazy stuff. I just have trouble imagining that Marvel would put anything like that in a movie today. It's crazy that Colin Farrell was just like, you know what? She won't shut up. Flick, peanut. She's dead. Killed an old lady. And then the flight attendant is like, can I get you anything? More peanuts. He killed a man with like 7 paper clips.
Yes.
I will also say, because you were talking about comic cameos, Frank Miller is one of the dead bodies that he kills. Like he like shoots the pen through his head, and he's like very briefly in there. So like, yeah, just the comic reference is very cool. But yeah, I love this Bullseye so much. Like I'm so thankful we live in a timeline where Colin Farrell has played 2 completely different, completely ridiculous comic book portrayals and just absolutely knocks it out of the park. Like at this, I loved every second he was on screen rewatching this.
Going back to Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin, man, Vincent D'Onofrio is great. They've yet to miscast Kingpin. This version of the character, when the movie ended, I'm not going to lie to you. I was like, man, I do want to see what happens when these two meet again. Because they will. And I honestly don't remember if that happens in Elektra. I genuinely have not watched Elektra in probably 18, 17 years. Makes me feel old, to be honest. But yeah, it's the villains in this movie were straight up villains. That's a great point. Gosh, yeah. What a film. What a cinema.
The scene where they like break his legs, like that final fight was brutal, but also very much Daredevil, which is like a very brutal comic book. And they did it without like including the Punisher, or like it was just about Daredevil. I love it. And the last note I have about Kingpin is, so they mentioned he's from the Bronx, and you see that in his you see that in his style of fighting. He's very gritty. He like plays very dirty. I'm like, yeah, the Bronx, they get down. Like I was like, that's why they're like mentioning it. But yeah, I loved the fights. I loved how good Michael Clark Duncan is, and rest in peace, because I think he would have killed it in current. Like I think he would have been a great current Kingpin, or any other character.
Coltrane from Gears of War. I would have loved to see him get to play that part. Oh gosh. Honestly, this movie, I want to say, but what you just said, I would love to see that sort of grittiness and darkness and roughness in a comic book movie today. You don't really get that in PG-13 comic book movies anymore. And this was a PG-13 movie. Granted, director's cut, probably unrated, probably would have been R. I'm pretty sure the theatrical cut of Daredevil is PG-13 though. And the breaking of the knees in that fight, I don't think was very different. I don't remember. I haven't watched the actual theatrical version in 20 years. But this movie as a whole, and this could be a product of the fact that this is when these kind of rides popped up, but it just feels like a theme park ride to me, like at Universal Studios when you go in and it's got like, the whether you're on the Incredible Hulk roller coaster or, the Spider-Man ride and stuff like that, it just has that feel. It has that feel of like this classic. It's even older than it should be, but it's still kind of new for me. And man, somebody just said the bar fight scene was so good. Jacobo Velasquez on the YouTube comment section. When me and Richard watched this movie 2 nights ago, I was like, this is awesome. I called out that I thought that action scene was great. And then it got kind of choppy and strobe lighty and a little harder to follow. But yeah, this sequence is just, come on. Like this is Charlie Cox and the stunt team on the Daredevil show are phenomenal. And they're probably the best to do it. But before them, 12 years before they even started, you had this, and man, this is some good stuff.
I can't believe he was using the same baton in his daily life. Like nobody else knew it was him. Like,
yeah, I had the same thought. I was like, bro, that's risky.
And they're distinctive. Like, have nondescript batons. Then why have a red leather lined, engraved, devil headed? Like, I was watching it. I was like, of course, they're figuring out who you are. Obviously, you're a blind lawyer who's always talking to the kingpin and like his organization, and now this blind guy is fighting us with the same like, come on. But yeah, I love the fighting, and I love the way that they always show a lot the way that Daredevil is perceiving things, because I don't think they really do it in the show, where like we forget that he is blind, but like we forget he's basically using sonar, and I feel like they only showed it once or twice in the most recent show.
Yeah, his seems to create a much clearer picture, and it's much more like fluid almost. I mean, maybe I'm getting this feeling because it's based on the fact that he can see Elektra's face in the rain, but it is like a much more liquid appearance of everything that he sees around him, and fluid. Whereas the version on Netflix, he says it's like the world is on fire, and his version of it, the limited times that we see it, is like he just sees the flames coming off the things around him, and that's how he sees it. And as I say that, wow, the clip with the flaming pool table plays from the 2003 movie. But yeah, I mean, I think that it also was cool if you watch this on DVD, the menu options when you to get to them before you hover them, they're written in Braille. So like before you get to play, it says play in Braille, but then when you get to the play button, it changes it and it says play. I think that's a cool little nod. Is there anything else you guys wanted to add to our Daredevil 20 years later discussion before we wrap this up?
Jon Favreau as Foggy is so good. Like every scene that they had, I love the Netflix Foggy and his dynamic with Matt, but just something about this just was so effective every single time they were on screen. Like the whole thing with the mustard and the honey at the diner was so cute, and like Ellen Pompeo as Karen was so good. Like everything, I wanted more Grace. Almost of their little dynamic, their like little Nelson and Murdoch, because they had such a good foundation there.
I'm so glad I revisited this movie. And honestly, I'm not going to lie to you. I want Ben Affleck to come back as Daredevil. I just want to know what's been going on. We're getting Elektra back. We're getting Jennifer Garner back. And I'm thrilled about that. I hope Ben suits up, man. I know that man has the worst luck when he puts on a superhero suit. That man cannot catch a break when it comes to playing these parts. But, I would love to see him play this part in Secret Wars. And honestly, this would be a universe I would care if it was destroyed due to an incursion.
Yep.
So... and that's what they need. That's what they need in the multiverse saga. They need me to care about another universe. Aaron, you got anything you want to add today to this?
I'm glad that everybody had fun. I kind of don't get it, but it's all good. I think that the time capsule quality of it is the most appealing thing to me, because I laughed when like they were playing the thing from the bar fight that just played. I'm sorry for the people listening in their cars, but like it felt like a 2003 music video. You know what I mean? Or like Def Jam Vendetta Fight for New York, which is I love personally. So anything with that kind of weird teal filter over it and no strobe lights for no reason, I'm like, okay, I will at least humor it. And I did have fun, which I was like, that's a plus. People forget now because everybody likes to bag on everything now so much because we can all hear each other all the time. A lot of the superhero movies that came out pre-MCU were not great. And that movie is fine. That movie is just fine, which is doing great for the time period, right?
Yeah, I'll say this. I don't know if it's a very good movie, but I know it entertained me all the way through. And I left me thinking, I actually would like to see more of this. So I think that's a mission accomplished. All right, we're going to go around. We're going to wrap up the show. Last words starting at the top. Jenna, any last words for today's episode of Phase Zero?
It's at Hey It's Jenna Lynn on whatever social media platforms may or may not exist in the next week. Go read some comics as always. And yeah, this is really fun. I'm excited for us to talk about Elektra because again, I remember next to nothing about that movie. So this will be fun.
Same. Aaron?
It's at Something Like Hornet on the platform that's name keeps changing. I went to actually see Lola last week. It's a very weird little sci-fi movie, like a smaller budget movie, but it was very, very interesting and strange. And I think it's on Amazon. I think you should check that out. Also, thank y'all the entire internet for the memes over the weekend. This kind of stuff makes me laugh. This stuff is hilarious. Please keep it coming.
Do you want to bother to describe that for?
Sure. I mean, for the people who are watching at home, I don't know if I'm getting in trouble, but like it's Captain America and Sam Wilson getting the shield, and instead of the shield, afterwards, Steve looks away, and then it's a folding chair. So, yeah.
If you know, you know. If
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Frankie, any last words for today's episode of Phase Zero?
Yes. You guys can all follow me at Fantastic Frankey,
Yes.
FRANKEY. Thank you guys for getting me to rewatch Daredevil 2003. I really appreciate it and having me here. I had so much fun. This was a blast.
Thank you so much for being here. To everybody on the Phase Zero community, thank you so much for giving a warm welcome to Frankie. Please go follow her. I promise you will not be disappointed. It will be worth the follow. It's great content. And Frankie's just awesome as she's at all these events, making just doing a great job. And thank you so much to Frankie for coming on Phase Zero today. Next week, so I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know if this is going to happen next week. We're supposed to do the Elektra rewatch for next week, and our guest, very excited to say, is be Heavy Spoilers from the YouTube channel, which is a channel I love. However, I might have some travel happening for work, so we might be reworking that. We'll keep you updated on social media, on the X, on the Instagram, on whatever, all the places we do that. So we'll figure that out. But the next time I'm on the show, which whether it's next week, the 16th, or the following week, which would be the 17th, we'll be talking about Elektra with Heavy Spoilers as the guest, and Jamie will be back with us as well. In the meantime, I highly suggest hitting up at Fantastic Frankey and following her on all the social media platforms. Head over to comicbook.com/Marvel for more Marvel updates. In the meantime, youtube.com/C/Phase Zero for more YouTube videos. We're doing lots of shorts. We're trying to get some more longer form video on there as well, and interviews and all that good stuff. And if we have an interview with the directors of Daredevil and Elektra, that's where they'll be. I've rambled. That's our show. Leave a 5-star review. I'm BD. See you next week.